for a session which was supposed to be scheduled for yesterday. Finally speaking goes on for today. So thank you for also giving me an opportunity to be coming and speaking. If I am audible, with your permission, can I commence?
Sir, please switch on your video, sir.
Just a second, sir. We will start with the session.
Sir, please switch on your video.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. Kannan sir, very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you, sir. It just so happens, this particular, I think the laptop still seems to be having that issue of that video.
Yes,
I'm trying to switch on. I'm trying to switch on. It's giving me.
Okay, no issues, sir.
No
issues, sir.
So
no worries, sir. I will make sure. I will join by my mobile at the end so that people can see my face as to who is talking. That I will surely do at the end.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, dear participants. Welcome back to the session 4 of day 4 ACTE short-term technical program. So, we have with us our speaker today, Dr. Colonel B. Venkat, Director, Faculty Development Cell, All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE, New Delhi. Sir is a serving Army officer from the technical branch, having done his mechanical engineering from Army institutes, having nearly 30 years of service experience and served in all possible appointments of command, staff and instructional. The officer is presently on deputation with AICTE and is handling faculty development related issues and release of grants through AICTE AQIS schemes. Sir has a unique distinction of representing India as its technical military attack to Russia. The Sir also handles IICT's quality initiatives like NITTT, that is National Initiative for Technical Teachers Training, which is mandatory for the purposes, sir, for the purposes of regularization and promotion to all teachers. Examination reforms implementation, 360-degree feedback of faculty members towards overall improvement of teaching and learning, and the most important implementation process of new educational policy 2020. Sir, I myself on behalf of our principal, directors, HOD, faculties and students of the Department of Biotechnology extend to you a very warm and cordial welcome, sir. Sir, the session is over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Pleasure interacting with you and pleasure to get introduced for coming on this platform. So Oxford Engineering College, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, introduction is Colonel Venkat. I am a Director of Faculty Development at AICTE. What I'm going to be speaking today is part of your already activated schedule that happens to be on National Education Policy 2020. So without wasting any further time, I'll at least the dynamics of NEP 2020 as to the various activities which are scheduled. Where are we today when we talk of NEP, which was released last year on 29th of July. And 29th of July this year, we celebrated also 1 year of the execution of the implementable aspects. And today when we are talking, we are touch and go 1 year and 1 month down the line. So where we are, what is expected, what all has been done, what all needs to be done, more so when you people yourselves being the faculty and you all of us, including me, we are into this particular profession, it is extremely important that all of us understand the nuances of NEP and try to fit in as to how best can be our contribution to the national cause, to your state, to your region, to your institute, to your student, or even to yourself. So let us go into this thing. What I propose is that I would be taking you through the complete NEP in a manner it has been spelled out. I do not have any set standard presentation or something which I speak. I would be speaking to you on the aspects pertaining to the NEP right from school level implementation to the higher education. And as we go from school level to the higher education, I would be connecting to you at every minute, and every point I will connect you with your higher education. So let us start with the school level national education policy. Again, it's the existing school system of education, which is 10+2. The national education policy talks of 5+3+3+4. when we have a 5 plus 3 plus 3, 3 plus 4, it is extremely important that each one of us understand as to what does this 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 imply and what is the logic and the reason behind it. The first 5, which is called as the foundational stage. This happens to be classes, that is a pre-primary class, 3 years of pre-primary and 2 years of classes 1 and 2. What is the concept of this? The concept of this is that in this age bracket, you add 3. If you add 3, that is the age bracket which is generally specified for children. So at this particular age bracket, it has been observed and found out that children are aligned in a better position to undergo education in the language or the medium of instruction in which they have been taught. So comes the very important aspect of NEP, that promotion of regional languages, and hence children will be given mandatorily exposure to study in their regional languages. This is one of the biggest points which have come out in the National Education Policy, which says that education to be provided in regional languages. And when we say that education is to be provided in regional languages, it is not only that we are talking of the school education. I will immediately connect you to the higher technical and higher education. You and me are today talking on the technical education aspect. So let us connect on the technical education. And when we talk of technical education, the education is also allowed to be taken in regional languages as far as the higher technical education also is concerned. So where we are, what have we done towards this, and what needs to be done? So let us quickly go through that. As far as the higher technical education, regional languages is concerned, AICT has already amended its provisions and guidelines where we have allowed an additional supernumerary strength of 30/60 additional seats for the purposes of pursuing educational and regional languages in institutes or in their departments, subject to that particular department or a discipline being accredited, and certain additional other criteria. And suffice to say that in the current year, when we took out a survey, there are 13 institutes across 8 states, and they are ready to pursue undergraduate in 5 different languages, that is Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Marathi, and Bengali. That is exactly where we are, and this is exactly what we are talking. That promotion of regional languages does not only limit itself to school education, it has also been aligned and also been given access to in higher education. Further, to enable this particular education in higher education, that is a regional language, we have identified 128 online MOOCs courses available on the SWAYAM platform, and we are in the process of translation of these courses into the regional languages. Simultaneously, the another activity which AICT has done, we have introduced a new initiative by the name of Technical Book Writing and Translation. Over a period of last 10 months, very laboriously, we have identified the probable authors, then they have written original books as per AICT's model curriculum, and after having written the original books, these books are now in the process of being translated into 11 scheduled Indian regional languages so that they will be made available prior to the commencement of the academic year. Now that's a huge step as far as the promotion of the regional languages are concerned. And simultaneously, the National Education Policy also mentions that promotion of the regional languages will be having a direct bearing and an impact on the overall gross enrollment ratio. What's a gross enrollment ratio? Just for the purpose of the definition for better understanding, a gross enrollment ratio is nothing but the number of students pursuing that particular level of education, in our case, higher education. So number of students pursuing higher education compared to the number of students of that age bracket who are available. Touch and go today, the higher education gross enrollment ratio is 27.4, and the National Education Policy desires that this number be at 50. For making it to 50, this is not the only step which is going to take it forward. There's going to be a whole lot of steps which would be combined together, and collectively we will be making the overall increasement of the gross enrollment ratio, thereby making our education much more accessible to the students who earlier could not pursue education. So this is just one of the many recommendations of the National Education Policy, and I thought it much better to align it immediately once we are growing, when we are taking a journey of a student. So this was what is applicable in the foundational stage, that is first 5 years, 3 plus 2. Let us go to the next stage, and when we go to the next stage, it is the preparatory stage. And when we talk of the preparatory stage, it is classes 3, 4 and 5. When we talk of classes 3, 4 and 5, out here at this particular level, a student continues to pursue education in the regional language of his choice, and simultaneously, this is the first time that a little bit inclination or little bit understanding of the skill related activities is infused into the education, and a student is made to undergo a little bit study of the skill subjects. What we in higher education call as vocational subjects is something what is now being introduced to students at this level, that is for a larger interaction between the general education and the vocational education. And this is exactly where the National Education Policy speaks about. It talks about that there will be no difference between the general education and the vocational education for the purposes of learning outcomes, or in other terms, the learning outcomes of the general education, the vocational education would be in such a manner aligned that there will be no differences between them. For that matter, if in case of a vocational education, there is a need to introduce certain bridge courses, that will be done. For the general education, if there is a need to introduce certain skill set oriented courses, credit-based courses being made compulsory or mandatory for students to undergo, that also needs to be done. Underlying statement is that there will be no difference between a student who takes on either a general education, who takes on either a vocational education, and this, mind you, is also going to be a massive contributory effect towards the overall increase in the gross enrollment ratio. Once we speak about any activity, mind you, I would be connecting you to the increase in the gross enrollment ratio. And as we are talking about vocational, at the national level, there has been an establishment of a committee called as NCIVE, National Committee for Integration of Vocational Education, with a single purpose of integrating the general education and the vocational education. And simultaneously, this committee has been mandated to form a NHEQF, that is National Higher Education Qualification Framework, and NSQF, which is called as National Skill Qualification Framework. One looks after the general education and one looks after the vocational education, and then to align both of them together in such a manner that the student who is going to be passing out will be passing out as per the levels so defined by the NSDC, that is the National Skill Development Council, and at each level his employability parameters would be identified and defined so that he is not only applicable for employment by the national occupation standards, but he or she is employable as per the IOS, which is the International Occupational Standards. This is to ensure that our students get employable all over the world, and India has a face in as far as the global recognition of our students is concerned. This is the whole gambit of a vocational education, with the final statement that there will be no difference between the vocational and the general education. A very important aspects which has come out, which happens to be that there has been a mention of Lok Vidya. Now, Lok Vidya is a traditional knowledge. The traditional knowledge which our artisans and our community seems to be having, which we seem to be possessing and be giving out from generations to generations. However, for lack of integration into our education system, this is something which is now needs to be preserved. So very correctly, the Lok Vidya has been identified as one of the vocational subjects which can be introduced into our education system for the purposes of credit-based marks. And once we have this particular subject as a credit-based marks introduced into our content in curriculum, students will be made to take this subject, and that is how this subject gets involved into the mainstream education, and you not only improve the livelihood of many people around, you also connect largest section of the society with you people, and thereby giving an impetus or overall growth to the GDP also. That is what is the whole understanding of vocational education. So let us move forward from the education, and now taking forward of the journey of the education to the next tree, that is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 is the second tree where we are. This is the middle level. Once we are at the middle level, we are at the classes 6, 7th and 8th. And once we are at the classes 6, 7th and 8th, the student continues to have an option to pursue his education in the regional languages that he or she so desires. That is number one. And number two, what was initially just an introduction of the vocational education in the previous level, now for the purposes of a wholesome integration becomes a mandatory aspect into the teaching learning. And at the same time, the student now gets an option to pursue his education in any other languages that he or she may so desire, with an alternate option of a medium of instruction, with an option still continuing with him to pursue in the regional language that he or she has so chosen. Also, it is at this particular time frame, it is felt and desired that there should be a larger interaction between the higher educational institutes and the school institutes, that is the schools. Once there is a larger interaction between the higher educational institutes and the schools, it is but obvious that the students will get an opportunity to interact with the teachers from the higher education. They will be given access, or they will understand the dynamics of higher education, and hence the student will be in a better position to take on his future course of action in the manner which is so very well desired. That is what exactly is supposed to be done once you call that there is going to be a larger interaction between the school education and the higher education institutes. This is also as part of the mandatorily activity which a higher educational institute has to do, something akin to what we call it as Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. That is their community outreach and their social outreach towards integration with the community and the society. This is a huge and welcome step as far as integration of the society towards education is concerned, thereby molding our students to take on or pursue a field of education that he or she wishes to take it in the times to come. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am not sharing any slides. I told in the beginning that I do not have any slides which I show it to you, with a single reason that it is much appreciated. The manner in which I would be speaking, that I speak from a school education to a higher education, and if you give me a patient hearing for about 40-45 minutes, I think you will be in a better position to recapitulate what I have spoken after it. So having understood the first three stages, that is the foundational stage, preparatory stage, and the middle level or a middle stage, we now move on to the last of the stages as far as the school education is concerned, and that is called as secondary level or secondary stage. And when we talk of secondary level or secondary stage, this is the place where maximum dynamics or maximum activities of the national education policy are filled in. And this will be the right platform for us to start connecting, in addition to what we have already spoken and heard. So the first of the activities which I would like to draw your attention is, you would have seen that there has been a revision in the syllabus or the contents of subject which have been offered to the students at this particular level. Students have been offered a mix of 13 to 14 subjects, and then he or she is at liberty to pick and choose his subject towards integration as far as his study is concerned. And it is at this level that the subjects which have been chosen also happen to be subjects which are pertaining to emerging areas such as artificial intelligence and robotics. So once you have this artificial intelligence and robotics also inbuilt into students at a school level, what is so very relevant is that AICT has already come into an MOU with CBSE, wherein we are teaching our school teachers also on various emerging areas or the niche areas which have been identified, so that our school teachers become that much capable enough to impart education to the school students. Now, coming to the school students, once they have an option to pick and choose their subjects towards alignment of their future with no specific embargo or mandated requirements on them, then the whole concept of education is driven by the learner or the student. And this is exactly what is called as student driven or learner driven or learner centric education model. And once this kind of system creeps in into our model of education, this is where we call it, it is a multidisciplinary and it's an interdisciplinary concept of an education. Immediately relating it to the higher technical education, once you talk about multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, how now to propose this multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary? What AICT we propose that we should have a model content of syllabus broken down into 60-20-20 format, with the initial 60 also broken down into 40 plus 20. So you have 40-20-20-20 format of education. Once you have a system of education which is 40-20-20-20, the first 40 is the core subjects, core discipline, the second 20 is the core electives, the third 20 is your basic sciences and humanities, and the last 20 happens to be your open electives. And when the last 20 happens to be your open electives, that gives you multidisciplinary. And when the third 20 was your basic sciences and humanities, that gives an option for your interdisciplinary. Now, why this concept of open electives? The concept of open electives have been recommended and proposed with a single reason, that in the national education policy, a mention has been given which talks about chapter 23, and the chapter 23 pertains to professional education. And when you talk about professional education as per national education policy speaks that a student, irrespective of the discipline which he or she has taken for the purposes of graduation, should have basic knowledge of agriculture, health and legal. And you can have a basic knowledge of agriculture, health and legal only and only if it is incorporated into your education system. How to incorporate it into your education system? There is a model that you can have it done by means of open electives. And once you introduce it by means of open electives, you can have certain credit based courses to be introduced in the open electives basket of agriculture, health and legal, and thereby making it compulsory for the students to pick these three to pursue the mandated requirements as far as the credit is concerned. However, we recommend why only these three courses? Increase the basket and give students enough opportunities to pursue on other fields and other subjects also, as far as the mandatory requirement of 20% of the credit marks are concerned as far as the open elective syllabus is concerned. So we propose, in addition to agriculture, health and legal, there should be Indian knowledge system, there should be universal human values, there should be Indian yoga, Indian dance, Indian music, there should also be Indian constitution. Why not introduce these subjects, give an option to students to study, thereby making the education that much more holistic and complete, and hence the student who is going to now be coming out from the education system will be coming out as a wholesome student, having taken the complete dynamics of professional education, and thereby he will be called a thorough professional. This is what is called as multidisciplinary as far as the education is concerned. Let us also dwell upon and talk about as to what is multidisciplinary in an institute. The national education policy comes out with a very, very clear remark that the biggest drawback or the biggest highlight which has been observed in our education happens to be a fragmented form of education. And once we talk of fragmented form of education, it is with a single reason that we have multiple institutes offering the same subject with absolutely no collaboration, no correlation, no intermingling between the departments, within the departments, between the institutes, or even within the institutes. And hence the institutes who are going to be only coming out and be part of the Indian education system in the times to come. And when I say times to come, the times to come are not something which is so far, it is very near. are only the multidisciplinary higher educational institutes. And by the definition of multidisciplinary higher educational institutes, what do we understand? By this terminology, we understand that these institutes would be imparting the education so desired to classify it or deem it as a multidisciplinary education. And towards this, AICT has already amended its provisions and guidelines, wherein we have allowed merger of the institutes from the same trust or the company, so as to not within 2 kilometers radius, but we have allowed it to go within the city limits. That is provisional. Number 2, we have also recommended and proposed to come towards multidisciplinary, whereby a very beautiful means, that is sharing of the infrastructure, sharing of resources, sharing of platforms, virtual laboratory, sharing of libraries. By saying this, it can be implemented that you can use the same infrastructure as an engineering institute in the morning and a diploma in the evening. This is just an example. That is exactly how you become multidisciplinary. And that is exactly what is going to be surviving in the times to come. Having said what's a multidisciplinary higher educational institute, it's very, very important to also understand that a basic multidisciplinary higher educational institute is supposed to be having its own framework for management and running, that is guidelines as to how it is supposed to be handled. And once we say that how a particular multidisciplinary higher educational institute is supposed to be handled and managed or be run, there is supposed to be certain infrastructure and administrative installations in place. So we also recommend that there should be a board of governors, there should be academic councils, and there should be the management, and then there should be various departments, with each departments being headed by either a dean or head of the department. As to why I am trying to emphasize on this, now there is a very specific requirement as to why I am trying to emphasize on this, and the requirement at this point of time per se comes is because of a single reason, that the national education policy also talks about a very important aspect, which is called as that these multidisciplinary higher educational institutes will be given graded autonomy. Once these multidisciplinary higher educational institutes are to be given graded autonomy, it is these forums which I have just spoken to you, the board of governors and academic councils, who come into role play extremely important. And once their role play becomes important, they are at liberty to frame their own framework, academic system, curriculum, decision to take courses, the credits, the methodology for certification, degree, diploma, PG diploma, and the means of delivery. Everything rests on these autonomous institutes. That is exactly what is called as an autonomy. And autonomy is nothing but a freedom. And freedom in our system of education is in administration, finance, and education. Administration and finance is well spoken, well heard. We shouldn't, let us not go into it. But once we talk about freedom in academics, this is exactly what I spoke to you, is the freedom in academics. And that is how it is going to be governed. An extremely important aspect that comes on the mind of each one of them happens to be that once you are going to be having autonomy given to these multidisciplinary higher educational institutes, these higher educational institutes also are at liberty to define the credits of the respective subjects, leading to the overall accumulation of the degree or diploma or PG diploma or a certificate. And because of a very important aspect mentioned in the NEP, which is about multiple entry and multiple exit, it becomes extremely important that each of these board of governors and academic councils come together and align with each other towards mutually accepting the courses being done in a neighboring institute for the purposes of student to exercise the option of multiple entry and multiple exit. That is where the role of autonomy comes into play. And as to what is this multiple entry and multiple exit, the multiple entry and multiple exit model is very clear that a student who in earlier times could not pursue their higher education for whatever reason, and had to leave it halfway through will now be made or be given an option to come back into the mainstream education once again. And then he has an option to pursue his education. Need not necessarily be from the same institute. He can come to any institute. But the underlying statement is that he has an option of coming back and pursue his education. And this, ladies and gentlemen, also gives a huge impetus to the overall increase in the gross enrollment ratio. That is exactly where this multiple entry and exit option has to be exercised by these now multidisciplinary autonomous higher educational institutes. In the times to come, which we have seen, last 1 year, in fact, more than a year and a half, the education has mainstay has been the online form of education. Once we have had the online form of education, even though thrust upon the system for continuing education due to the pandemic situation, but the fact is that the national education policy also supports that towards imparting a wholesome education, and online means of education should also be one of the means. Now today, if we have 40% of the credits which have been approved to be given to a particular student for pursuing his course completion in online mode, the percentage cannot be defined as of now for the times to come, but the statement which needs to be kept into consideration is that online form of education will remain a part of the education in the times to come. And in case if suppose online form is to be part of the education, the ICT has already carried out amendment to their approval process and has accorded approval to various institutes to pursue education, higher education, in fact higher technical education in an online and in ODL mode, subject to qualifications. That is, they should be a accredited MBA, they should have a NAC rating, or they should be in the top 100 in the NIRF ranking. But we have allowed online and ODL education to be commencing in logistics, travel, tourism, MCA, certain engineering disciplines where a hands-on experience is not required, such as artificial intelligence. At these areas, we have allowed the online and ODL, and this again, permission to pursue higher education in online and ODL will be a huge contributory factor to the overall increasement in the gross enrollment ratio. Extremely important for each one of us to today understand as to the when we talk about national education policy, as to whom does this particular national education policy focuses at, as to why we are talking about anything. Is it about the changes in our education system? Is it about changes in our institutions? Is it about changes in our faculty? Is it about changes in our society? Ultimately, it is looking at each one of them. But the ultimate focus happens to be on the students. To bring about a change in our education students in such a manner that our students who are going to be the future leaders get educated in a professional manner, thereby doing a meaningful contribution to the overall national growth. That is what we are all aiming at. Very loosely, sometimes we can say that making them employable. But that is not the aim. The aim is to enable them to have a meaningful contribution to the national growth. And if that be the case, there is a full chapter in NEP on inclusive education. And what do we understand by inclusive education? By inclusive education, we understand something called as access, equity, equality, autonomy, accountability, affordability, and quality. There are certain aspects which I have spoken about, the definition of the meaning called as inclusive education. Very quick run through, generally speaking, I will make you go through them as to what is access. And access means an opportunity to students to be given, thereby giving them a free hand or making things or making infrastructure or resources, even the library, laboratory, even the online platforms, even the Wi-Fi, even the portals available to the students. That is called as access. This is where the responsibility of the institutes do come into play. Equality is nothing but Right to Education 2009, which says that no two students will be differentiated for the purposes of caste, creed, religion, culture, or their financial status. Or simply put it across, all students will be treated alike. Equity implies that no two individuals are born alike. Every individual has his own specific peculiarity and requirement. And when everybody has its specific peculiarity and requirement, everybody needs to be paid that specific attention for the purposes of wholesome growth of each and everyone. That is where the role of a teacher comes into play. Identifying students as per their specific needs and requirement, and then paying that much more attention towards each one of them. That is called as equity. Autonomy, we just spoke. And when I spoke of autonomy at that point of time, we were referring to an institute. And always appreciate and understand, whenever we speak about autonomy, accountability is an inbuilt subject. Never can autonomy be given without accountability. So once we talk of autonomy of an institute and accountability, at that point of time, that accountability is related to the institute. But here when I'm talking of accountability of a faculty member or a teacher. It is time that the faculty members and the teachers be held accountable. And that is exactly what at AICT we have done. We have done by introducing certain provisions in our Gazette notification dated 2019, wherein we have made 360-degree feedback of teachers mandatory for the purposes of promotions. Then comes is affordability. What is affordability? Affordability is nothing but making the education system that much more financially viable for larger section of the society to come and take education or pursue education. Affordability can be done by multiple means. It can be done by introducing new schemes, financially funded schemes, by increasing the scholarships, and at the same time it can also be done by reducing the overall fee structure. The fee structure can be reduced with a single reason, that in case if in the times to come online education is going to be one means of education, then the student need not spend that much amount of time in an educational institute, and the amount of time not spent by the student in an educational institute can be compensated by means of reduction of the fees. That is exactly what is called as making the education system affordable. And last but not the least comes in quality. Ladies and gentlemen, if I ask any one of you what is the definition of quality, I think most of us will come out with a common answer that quality means quality, or quality means something which is acceptable, or quality means the best standards, the best. The definition of quality happens to be attaining certain set standard benchmark of parameters which have so been laid down and which have been universally accepted to be the norms in our education system. Once we talk about quality, the quality is nothing but related to accreditation, and hence the National Education Policy also talks about the institutes, that is this multidisciplinary higher educational institutes would mandatorily be accredited. That is exactly what now the full definition of a institute becomes: multidisciplinary autonomous accredited institutes. That is what is being looked at in the National Education Policy. National Education Policy also talks about having one of these multidisciplinary higher education institutes in each district of the country with minimum 3,000 students undergoing education. That is the aim and vision of the National Education Policy. Also, any one of you should be asking this question as to what is the ultimate aim of National Education Policy. The ultimate aim of National Education Policy happens to be making India reach the global hub of education. That is what we were long back during the times of Nalanda and Takshashila as to why we cannot reach that glory heights. These can only be reaching provided you have a concept of internationalization of your education, and by means of internationalization, it means two ways. Number one, it's a thought for introspection for many of us as to why our students, after doing the school or the schooling in India, go abroad for pursuing higher education. And at the same time, what is lacking in us to attract the foreign students to our education system? Answer is very simple. If you recollect, when we spoke about in the beginning, I was talking about the open electives basket. And in the open electives basket, I was talking about, besides agriculture, health, and legal, we need to give an option of universal human values, Indian knowledge system, Indian dance, Indian music, Indian yoga, even Indian constitution. As to why was that spoken? That was spoken with a single reason, that the sooner you syllabus based on these aspects, you will be bringing in an Indianness into your education system. And once you bring in an Indianness into your education system, your Indian values, our Indian culture, our ethos, our way of living a life will be showcased to the students. Once you bring about this change into our curriculum, be rest assured, you will surely be attracting foreign students, and not only attracting foreign students, you and me together will be in a position to even stop our Indian students from going abroad. That is called as bringing about a wholesome change in the education system, and that is exactly called as internationalization of our education system. There can be many more options. Those are administrative options. We are focusing more on, our academics related option as to where, as a faculty member, your contribution can be seen or your contribution can be put. That is called as internationalization. Suffice to say, ladies and gentlemen, in case if we incorporate a whole lot of the activities which we have seen, you and me are seeing India at a global hub of education. However, what we also need to continue is that the student is now in a ready frame of mind to finish his school education and now move to the higher education. And at this point of time, when the student moves from the school education to the higher education, it is here that for the first time he is interacting with the various faculty members and the teachers of the higher education. In case if this is the first time he is interacting with the teachers and the faculty members of the higher education system, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, the student of the future, and when I talk again of future, please do not relate to a very long extended future. Future is just around the corner. A student is much more aligned, current, relevant to the various happenings around, and so becomes that much more necessity for a faculty member and teacher to be prepared, to be that much more motivated, energetic, and be current and relevant both in your respective academic disciplines, as also continuously going under, various refresh courses of your professionalism, as also continue to remain connected with the various dynamics of technology. As to why the dynamics of technology I am quoting as of now, because of a single reason, that there is a very important mention of a chapter in NEP which is called as integration of technology. This integration of technology is a very relevant aspect. No more the education is now a classroom education. The education has gone beyond the realms of a classroom education, and it is now being driven and run by technology. So the more the faculty members remain current and relevant to the technology, its integration, utilization, that much more accepted a teacher or a faculty member will be there in the times to come. That is exactly what has been spoken in the National Education Policy. NEP talks about establishment of NETF, National Education Technology Forum, NETF, the role and mandate will be to continuously keep identifying various e-tools, e-infrastructure, e-platforms, which can then be identified, moderated, and then be given to our institutes and faculty members towards improving their teaching learning and towards their continuous capacity building. Also, a very important chapter comes as teachers training. There has been a need felt that unlike various other organizations or departments or government bodies, wherein there is a proper training prior to coming into any discipline, higher education is a place wherein there is no set standard training being imparted. So when a training has to be imparted, it has been found mentioned, and that is where exactly AICT, the IEEE National Initiative for Technical Teachers Training, with 8 modules as a mandatory activity fits in. Suffice to say, when we talk about implementation of NEP, lots of activities are already happening. They were already happening prior to the announcement. All that needs to be done is that streamline and align those activities as per the mandate of NEP. Second, come forward with certain new activities to incorporate the provisions of NEP. As far as AICT is concerned, numerous initiatives and schemes have been initiated towards the faculty members, towards the students, towards the institutes also. Each one of you is at liberty to please access the AICT website and continuously keep remaining current to the various schemes which are being announced. Ladies and gentlemen, if I have to, sum up my talk and sum up the talk and say, toward the journey of a student from his initial stages, that is from foundational to preparatory to middle to secondary and then coming to the higher education, I have tried to cover up each and every mandate of an NEP in a very manner which is so very relaxed and with no set definitions which are given in the NEP. I have tried to connect it every time with the higher education, the provisions of NEP and the various activities towards it, what have been related or what has already happened. And I hope by my way of taking in this journey of a national education policy for each one of you, most of you who have heard me are already aware of as to what's an NEP and what's the provisions of NEP. For others who are inclined to listen and then start understanding NEP, I hope I have been reasonably motivating enough to most of you to actually speaking go back and then study about the provisions of NEP. And also, before I conclude the talk, I think it would be very pertinent for me to mention to each one of you as to at a national level, what is the structure to look like. At a national level, the whole structure is going to be looking like there's going to be a provision of a higher body called as HECI, Higher Education Commission of India. All forms of education except medical and legal will now be coming under the mandate and the provision of HECI. Under the HECI, there are going to be 4 verticals. First vertical will be NHERC, National Higher Educational Regulatory Council, which will be carrying out the regulations. Number 2 will be HEGC, Higher Education Grants Council, which will be the single body responsible for disbursement of grants, whether it be to institutes, faculty, to the students. At the same time, there is a body which has been formed called as NRF, National Research Foundation, and this National Research Foundation will be a single body responsible for handling the research and related activities. It has also been mentioned that there will be no difference between the government and the private institutions as far as the research grant is concerned. There will be no difference. Only thing that will be related is that the research necessarily will be focused on the national needs and national requirements. The third vertical is going to be the NAC, National Accreditatory Council. Unlike multiple bodies today carrying out accreditation, there will be a single body now carrying out accreditation. And the last body, and very, very pertinent and important body, is going to be the GEC, that is the General Education Council. The General Education Council will be a mix of various professional bodies today, that these bodies will be coming together and in such a manner that they will be the professional standard setting bodies who will be continuously going through the various curriculum courses and the contents, aligning them in such a manner that they are internationally accepted and are as per the needs and provisions of industrial norms. There can be various councils today, like we have Veterinary Council of India, Pharmacy Council of India, the Council of Architecture. So all of them comes under the General Education Council. That is what is exactly the framework of national education policy. And today, once we are 1 year and 1 month down the national education policy, we have driven quite a lot. Quite a lot of activities have happened. Quite a lot of activities are in the process of happening. Quite a lot of activities are supposed to happen in the times to come. But by the year 2035, the way in which there has been a massive collaboration, not only between the governments, state governments, the various professional bodies, the regulatory bodies, the institutes and the faculty members, we are expecting that by 2030, India should be at the global hub of education once again, imbibing the norms which we always had of a guru and shishya. We do that, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a collective effort of each one of us. And that is exactly where each one of us have got their own roles to play. Thank you. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me a time to speak, for giving me an opportunity to be speaking to you people. And it was a pleasure interacting with you. And I do appreciate and understand that the short-term training program on startup-driven bio-innovation and IoT for sustainable agri-tech has been going on in this particular week. However, it is extremely important that you understand the provisions of NEP. And this particular talk cannot, actually speaking, drive you through the whole national education policy, but at least it gives you sufficient reasons to go back and at least open the NEP and go back and at least go through what all is happening in your limited sphere of influence, wherever we are today, how best we can contribute towards the implementation of NEP. It was a pleasure interacting with you, and I sincerely thank the complete management, the complete staff, the coordinators for giving me an opportunity to be speaking. I would also appreciate there would be a lot of recommendations coming towards implementation. There will be a lot of queries coming. Please do not worry on the nature of the query or recommendation. It can be as stupid as possible, because we are also implementing in or in the process of implementation. Let it be the most vaguest of the vague recommendation, but that is exactly what we are looking, an absolute out of the box thinking. Otherwise, there are many learned people already sitting here and implementing it. We are looking forward to one of the recommendations coming from the junior most faculty towards the implementation of the NEP and its provisions. May I request, that because of the shortage of time, I will not be in a position to take on immediately the question answers, but I would surely request that these recommendations, suggestions, questions, if any, be compiled and given it to AICT, to me, and we would surely be looking into it. I would sincerely thank all the participants, in addition to the management and the coordinators, for giving me a very patient hearing and listening to whatever I had the knowledge of the NEP, because I am at the stage where I am in the process of implementation. So I gave you a point of view from the implementable aspects. You are having much more at your level. Please do combine them and give us back also certain knowledge. It would be that much more appreciated. Thank you, and thanks a lot. It was a pleasure interacting with you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And we salute you for your knowledge on NEP. Many times we with PPT, we struggle to deliver the lecture. But without the PPT, you are damn good in delivering the content, the complete content of the NEP. Really hats up to you. And that is how India will shine with under the leadership of people like you. We thank you for your wonderful lecture, wonderful and informative lecture. And definitely, as you said, we will compile the opinion of all these participants regarding implementation of NEP, and we'll update you regarding this. On behalf of the participants, managements, and our department faculty members, we thank you wholeheartedly for your wonderful session. In spite of your busy schedule, you made your time to come here and deliver a wonderful lecture. Thank you. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure always. With your permission, sir, can I log out, sir?
And we'll be lucky in case if you can give us some more time so that in the forthcoming phases we can have an elaborate discussion on NEP, because as AICTE has made mandate to have one session in each phase, so it will be lucky to have all NEP sessions from your end so that we will have one comprehensive view on NEP, sir.
Absolutely, sir. It will be my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure interacting, sir.